Hey, welcome to the first ever Equip podcast with me. My name is Andy Bondurant. I'm one of the pastors here at CrossPoints Church, and every month I will be bringing to you a new podcast or a new something about leadership, all right? So how's that? How's that for kicking this thing off? A new something. We're going to bring you, we're going to equip you to lead. That's the goal here, all right? And every month will be a different theme, different idea. To this month, today, we're going to be talking about generosity. But the thing that we want to do is we want to equip you to lead. So here's my personal philosophy. I believe that you are a leader. Now, you may not feel like you're a leader. You may not be, a manager at your business. You may not be doing anything, what you feel like is true leadership material. But let me tell you this. If there's someone at your job that looks up to you, you're a leader. If there's someone else at your home, whether it's your wife, your husband, whether it's your children, you are a leader. Now, you may not lead the entire time, but there are times that you lead. And I want to encourage you that you are a leader. That means that we all need to be equipped to become leaders. So the format is going to be really simple. I'm going to do a short introduction, which I'm doing right now. Then I'm going to be doing an interview. Today, we're going to be interviewing Steve Raydo. I'm really excited about that. We're going to be talking, Steve and I, about leadership and specifically finances. How do we lead with our personal finances, which then ties into generosity? How do we lead with our personal finances so that we can be more generous? Because God calls us as leaders, as people, as believers in Jesus, He calls us to be generous. And that starts with our money. When it starts with our money, it comes with our personal finances. And then I'm going to end with just my top 5. How do I see the top 5 things that you can do as a leader in whatever category we're talking about? So this month, it's how do you lead, top 5 ways that you can lead with your money. And then I'm going to give you 3 tools or 3 tips on how that you can actually do that. All right, so that's what this podcast is going to look like. I am excited for you to be a part of it. If you are interested in being a part of the interviews in the future, you need to follow me on my Facebook page. You can click on Facebook and then go to @Andy Bondurant, ANDYBONDURANT, and you can follow me there. And I'm going to be asking questions every month, asking for your input. I got a couple of here that I'm really excited to go over with you guys when we talk to Steve. So do that, and here we go. Here's my interview with Steve Raydo. Well, hey, here we are. I have my friend Steve Raydo here with us today. Steve is one of the elders here at CrossPoints Church. You've grown up here at this church. I don't know how long have you been?
Yeah, since I was like 6 or 7 years old. Okay, so it's like 40 plus 20, years. I was going to say 25 years, right? No. Yeah. So Steve is husband to Rachel, father to Haley, Kayla, Nate. He's also an elder, one of the elders here on the board here at CrossPoints. And one of the reasons I have you here is that you have, I don't know how long now, but you've been a facilitator for FPU, Financial Peace University, which is Dave Ramsey's organization, which you're not paid. This is just a volunteer role. Mm-hmm. How long have you been a facilitator, roughly, I think the first class was around 2005. And then we did many classes for many years in a row, and then we stopped doing it for 2 or 3 years, and then maybe we would do it a couple of times, and then we stop. And then we recently did one in our small group. Yeah. So the reason I have you here is we're talking about generosity this month on the podcast, talking about how we lead with our finances. And obviously Financial Peace University, 15 years or so of leading different courses. How many courses would you guess that's been over the last 15 years? 10? 12? Oh, no more.
20?
Yeah, I would say close to 20.
Because you were doing them like back to back.
Yeah, right? So I probably did maybe 2 or 3 a year for several years in a row.
Okay, so I want to get into why you did it, but let's just kind of do a brief overview of what does Financial Peace University look like? What is that?
So it really is a very basic consumer finance 101. Okay. There's no get-rich-quick schemes.
Well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Why are we even doing it, right?
I know, exactly. But it really gets down to, there are a lot of people that grew up that did not have a basic financial background. Okay. They didn't know how to budget. They didn't know, what about debt? What about credit cards? What about student loans? What about investing? What about insurance? I mean, there's a wide variety of things. And
these are the things that we're expected to know as adults. As soon as we enter into the adult world, we should know about credit cards. We should know about taking out loans. We should know about what kind of insurance to get. Whole insurance, term insurance. What are these? I don't know. Yeah.
You are but whether you're ready or not, you're forced to at some point, right? So, so it's a very basic step process. He has what he calls the baby steps, and there's 7 of them.
Okay.
And he wants you to follow them in order.
And he is Dave Ramsey.
Ramsey. And I think what I like most about Dave Ramsey's approach is it's very simple. It's very basic. Anyone can do it. Anyone can understand it. But he also uses scripture. And he uses his own failures in the past. He went bankrupt, and he did it the wrong way. He built wealth the wrong way, and then he's teaching people how to do it the right way. And I also think he's very entertaining.
Yes, he's a great. He draws you in with what he says for sure. And so, how many? It's a 8-week course, a 10-week course.
Yeah, it's 9 weeks. Like in our small group class, because of they're all in their 20s. I skipped 1 or 2 lessons. I think it was 2 lessons. We agree, and I just did a quick recap. So sometimes I move it depending on what length of time we have in the calendar, but it is 9 weeks.
Right. So it's a 9-week course. And how in the world did you even get interested in this idea of personal finances? Now, I will say you're an accountant for a large corporation, international corporation that has a branch here in town, and so obviously that's part of the reason that you're interested in finances, but like why more the personal finances, FPU?
I think it's because I want to serve. And I feel like it's a gifting that God's given me. My wife Rachel she serves in so many capacities, and I usually help out there. I really felt like I needed something that really spoke to me. And early on, I felt I'm not a handyman. I mean, there's certain things I'm just not talented at, but I feel like I have a good understanding of basic finances, organizing it, giving people advice, not hitting them over the head with what they're doing wrong, but giving them really concrete advice, maybe getting them organized or whatever. And so I just feel like it's something where I'm also patient. It just is it's just a gifting that works for me.
Right. And it's something that you have somewhat of a base of knowledge about that maybe the average person doesn't with your accounting degree. You're just basically, you like math, you like numbers. I will say that you are a numbers guy.
Yes, I am.
You're the baseball numbers guy, you're the football numbers guy, you're the money numbers guy. For sure.
I love statistics. But even though that's maybe the foundation, it goes back to I still want to help people. I don't want to just keep it to myself, or just teach my kids or whatever. I want to help other people that need it. Okay.
So I was telling you earlier when we were talking about this, there's this book that I read. It's called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And if you're interested, I will put a link at the bottom of this. But he talks about how there's like these keystone habits. So for instance, you want to lose weight. Maybe a keystone habit is to actually get a scale, which some people say this is not a good thing, right? But to have a scale in your bathroom and keeping track of your weight actually is a keystone habit to losing weight, or maybe going for a walk or something. There's keystone habits. So when you see, you have somebody comes in, whether that's a couple, an individual, whoever it is, and they're interested in becoming financially free, finding peace, is there, you think, a key habit when it comes to our finances that springs everything else, that helps people get out of debt, helps them save money, helps them do this or that? Like, is there one key that you would say?
Yeah, I would say budgeting. And I think
that's sexy.
I know it is. It's so much fun.
Yes.
Only nerds like me that like budgeting. But I think it's budgeting because you have to be organized. I think I come in and to many people's financial situations, and so many times they have no idea what they're spending money on. And they'll I forgot about this bill. I forgot about this, and they don't have anything written down or on an app or on the computer or whatever. And so I don't think you have to be somewhat organized and have a plan before you can tackle anything else. It's amazing. Some people will come in and we'll even start the budget and they'll be like, oh, Steve, I'm sorry, I forgot about this bill. Oh, I forgot. I forgot we pay property taxes this month or whatever. And that's, I've kind of learned the key items that people forget. The other thing is people way underestimate what they spend, and it's usually on food and clothes. They way underestimate how much money they spend.
Right. I don't spend that much. I don't eat out that much. I don't buy that much clothes. Right. But yeah.
But they say, or maybe it's the grocery store, maybe it's eating out, maybe it's they spend it on clothes, or maybe they're on Amazon or whatever, and it kind of gets away from them. Yeah. And I think by organizing themselves and actually tracking what they spend, it's the first step, and then answering, well, should I save next? Should I give more money? Should I get out of debt? What are the next steps I need to do? But you have to start with, what are you actually dealing with? And we talk about doing it on a monthly basis. So from month to month, your budget can change. And so you don't want to do it for a year basis. You can look back and see how you did, but you want to do it on a monthly basis. And keep track as you go. Okay,
Steve, I am not an organized person, right? Or my wife or my husband, the person that I live with, is not an organized person. Sounds great. I'm not. That's not who I am. What do you say to someone like that?
I say if you're married and your spouse is also not organized, then it's probably good to have somebody like me or somebody else that can help you at the start. Okay. So to me, once you get started, people generally get it. I mean, they say, this isn't that hard. It's just me tracking what I've got. Once you get it set up the first time, whether you do it in an app or Excel spreadsheet or whatever, you can simply, all these apps are so easy. They just roll the amounts over to the next month, and you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Sometimes I'm always paying this much for my internet. Right. So that's always going to be, so it's the small things, it's the eating out, it's the clothes that I have to track. And that becomes very easy when it's just those things rather than my mortgage payment, my gas bill.
So the variable expenses versus the fixed expenses. The variable expenses that can fluctuate, that's where it gets a little out of control. I also think what happens when I come in and look at your budget, we kind of talk and say, well, everything looks okay. And there's some obvious things that I don't even have to point out. Well, they need to make more money. They just, for what they've done a good job on budgeting on expenses, but they just aren't making enough income. Or maybe it's...
And I've listened to Dave Ramsey enough. He talks about you have an outgoing problem, but a lot of times it's an income problem.
It is. It's an income problem. So maybe it's picking up a part-time job for a few weeks or whatever to get back on track. Or it could be maybe you're in too big of a house. Maybe you need to downsize a little bit. Or maybe it's selling the car and getting a cheaper car to reduce your car payment. There could be a wide variety of things you do. But those are the things that...
But it begins with that budget,
Yeah, absolutely. You have to start with that, and then you start analyzing what to do next.
Okay, so that's kind of the positive. That's just what I start. Now let me reverse that question. What tends to hold someone back from finding financial peace?
So I think I wrote down 3 words: organization, discipline, and motivation. And I feel like organization goes back to the budget part.
Right.
The discipline, so a lot of people are excited. Oh, this is awesome. I got this budget. It's going to be great. And then all it takes is, man, I really need a new phone. Wow, I really need, my computer's old. Wow,
I'll just go out to eat this time for lunch.
Yeah. It could be small things too, and those add up. And so they'll be like, we'll just do this one time or whatever. And then what happens at the end of the month, the budget's blown, and then they like, oh, this doesn't work. I give up. And then they go back to what they did. I think, and motivation kind of ties into that, because it's all about needs and wants. If your motivation is to get out of debt or save more money or whatever, and that supersedes any of your now present wants, you're going to have a much greater chance of succeeding than if you're like, okay, I kind of want to do this budget. I know I should do it, but I also want things right now. That's going to be very difficult for you to overcome if your motivation is, I've got all these things and
while I want to get out of debt, while I want to do a budget, I really what I want to do is I want to do everything at the same time, but it's not practical in most cases.
Yeah. So it's part of it is having that dream out there. This is what I see for my life, and this is not just a year from now, 6 months from now, even 5 years from now. This is when I'm 25 years old, when I'm 45, I'm 55, I'm 65, I'm 46 years old. So in 20 years at 66, what does my life look like from a financial perspective?
Right. And I think, so it's interesting you say dreams. So I think for a lot of people, yes, that's true. I think they want to see, especially where you're at in life, if you're in your 50s or 60s, you're thinking about retirement. It's like, I need to get going. I need to get motivated. But I also think, especially for younger people, especially in their 20s and early to mid 30s, sometimes it's hard for them to think about retirement. They don't care about that. It's not necessarily a goal of theirs. And so they are more in their future is the next 2 to 3 years. And so I want to get a house. I want to upgrade my cars. I want to get a better job.
And those are great things.
Yeah, and yes, it is. But one of the challenges that I have of when we talk about investing in retirement in this whole thing is when you're dealing with somebody that's younger, I've got 40 years till I'm going to retire, so I'll worry about that later. So it's thinking about it all together.
Right. So let's go ahead and stay on that idea of young adults. I know that you have a group of young adults that meets in your home, and you just recently took them through Financial Peace University. And 2 questions for you. I'm going to start with the first one. Is you've just finished that, I think a few weeks ago. It was a 9-week course or maybe a little less. What has you excited after you've interacted with this group of 10 to 15 young adults that are just normal 20-something-year-old kids? We'll call them kids between you and us, right? They're not kids, but in their mind, but to us, they're kids. What has you excited when you look at that group from a financial perspective?
I think they have a strong desire to learn, and they want to know. They want to know not only how to handle finances, but what does God say about handling finances? It not only was what Dave Ramsey said, but we would talk about the scriptures he used, and there would be some questions about, okay, how does this apply to this? I'm not sure I understand. Let's talk about it some more. So I'm really excited about that. I think just asking questions in general, you can always tell when people are really into it, they will start asking you questions and what do you think about this? And so that really gets me excited. I think the thing that concerns me is I think it's discouragement. And for that age group, some of it is they've got maybe student loan debt, or they're trying to go to college and they know they're taking out loans.
Right.
Maybe it's a car payment. So it's those things, and
I'm only making X amount of dollars.
Right, and that was the other thing.
hole that I'm in right now.
Right. So and for them, a lot of times it's lower income. So how do I get out of that hole, and how can I can't even imagine getting out of debt because I'm making. So that it's usually a little different for people in their 40s and 50s, because usually the income has increased over time, but the debts have increased too. So it's a little bit different problem. But for this age group, I think it's a little bit because they're not quite making as much money.
Yeah. Okay. So I told you earlier, I put out on Facebook, my personal Facebook page, just some different questions or asking people for questions that they would like to know. And I thought this was a really good one. Stan Brandon. Stan, thanks so much for putting this question out there. What is the biblical end game for financial management? And so he gives some examples, like, is it just to leave an inheritance to your children? Is it to be able to live off of your entire retirement, at 65 or whatever, not leave an inheritance? Is it to, and I like this one, live day by day, rely on God, the flowers of the fields and the birds of the air, God will take care of them. He'll take care of us the same way. So how would you answer that question? What is the biblical end game that we should have for financial management?
So I have a couple of scriptures here that I'll throw out, and then I'll also give kind of a practical, maybe reflection on that. In Proverbs 13:22, it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." In 1 Timothy 5:8, it says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially members of his household, he has denied his faith and is worse than an unbeliever." And then Proverbs 21:20, and this deals a little bit more with saving money. "The wise store up choice food and oil, but fools gulp theirs down. I think.
And so, hey, you went through those real quick. Yeah. I'll make sure I put those on the notes here.
Okay,
yeah, but that's good.
Great. And I think where I come down, and this is a lot comes from Dave Ramsey too. I don't think we're called to hoard our money. I think we probably would all agree with that. I also don't think we're supposed to live off what the government has. If your plan is to live off
You're making
Social Security,
some radical statements here.
I know. If you plan on living on Social Security, first, you don't know if it's going to be there, and if it is, if it's going to be reduced.
Right.
You may live in government housing. You may be forced to live somewhere you're not. I think it's biblical because I gave a couple of scriptures. You're supposed to take care of yourself and your household. That is biblical. Right. I feel like...
And we're working toward that. Not only are we working, but we're also saving, we're preparing, we're planning towards knowing what our future is going to be.
Absolutely.
As much as we can.
My excitement, I know I'm going to have shelter, food. I have money. We're doing pretty well. But my excitement isn't that I build up all this money so I can keep it and even just give it to my kids. My excitement is I want to give. I want to see what God has for us. You know, we spoke earlier about that. You know, Rachel and I are both looking at what does God have next for us, and it's really to help people, and it could be kids, it could be single moms, it could be widows, it could be just young adults that need help. We're looking at a wide variety of things, and I feel like, by doing kind of the Dave Ramsey or anybody else that kind of teaches a very simple budget, kind of live life, investing, whatever, we are to make money so we can give back to not only to the church, but to also people that are really in need. I mean, Dave Ramsey kind of makes a joke about this. Is it really God's purpose for only non-Christians to make money? Don't we need Christians to make money so we can drive the kingdom, pursue the kingdom? There is a biblical, I think there's a biblical principle there that God uses people that have money to help other people and to spread his kingdom. Yeah,
so I want to talk about that just for a second because I know that you've been doing the kind of the Dave Ramsey method, the 7 baby steps method for over 20 years, I'm guessing?
About 20 years.
20 years or so. And you've gotten to yourself to a place, and you are entering into a new era of life, right? Where your youngest is finishing up school. He'll be out of the house, I'm assuming, in the next couple of years. And you guys are in a new place, and you're starting to dream. And that's where this idea of the generosity that we're called to as believers and finances that everyone deals with are meeting together. So talk about that a little bit more. I know you just briefly mentioned it, but you guys it's more than just this thought, but you guys are actively talking and dreaming together about that.
Yeah, so we've thrown around ideas about should we possibly even downsize our house and maybe invest in maybe another property where we could give people that are really struggling a chance to get on their feet, but not just give them a place to pay a little bit of money, but to actually walk them through. I could help them with their finances and get them kind of on the right track. And Rachel could help them with basic needs and stuff. Maybe they need to learn how to cook or things where maybe they weren't exposed to or they've gotten away from. So we can really make a difference. We've talked about fostering kids. You know, we've talked about so many different things, helping just so many different sets of people out, and we're still praying through that, so we don't know specifics. These are just kind of general idea. Maybe God has us to stay in our current house. We as you said, you know, Nate is in college right now, and when he's gone, we have this nice house, but are we supposed to downsize? Should we open it up? Should we possibly have people stay in our house? And because that's what God has for us, to stay in our house. So we're not dismissing anything, but we're in that active prayer life right now, and we're kind of dreaming, as you said, all the different things. And where does God have us go and kind of concentrate in this area? And I think if we weren't financially there, if we hadn't set ourselves up, it's not that you can't dream, but we're able to probably dream a little quicker than some people because we're in pretty good financial shape.
Right. So going all the way back to Stan's question is what's that end game? It's putting ourselves in a place at some point in our life where we have the ability financially to be generous how we want to be generous.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think it's believers, right? God puts it in our heart to be generous, right? And then it's, do I have the capability to do that? Or am I just living on faith that I'm going to give or pledge this much money and God's going to come through?
Right. And I think that's kind of where I'm at, where we've put ourselves, and I don't want to dismiss people that maybe are around our age or a little older even that aren't in that place, because you can still give. You can still give. You may not be able to give what you would want to give, but you can still give. And it's not always money. It can be time. It can be other things that you can give. And maybe it's just delayed. Maybe this will motivate you to be like, we're going to get down to this in the next couple of years. We're going to get it set because I want to have that life too. So don't get discouraged because of, oh man, I'm already this age, but just use it as a, hey, it doesn't matter how old I am. I can still give. My point is that especially if you're younger and you're watching this, but even if you're a little older, you know, it's not about hoarding money. It's about giving to God's kingdom, and it's to giving to God's people, and maybe even outside of God's people. Maybe we're out there to help non-Christians, and then they can see that generosity that it's not just the church, but it's individuals in the church that are giving.
Right. Well, hey, I think we've gone close to 20 minutes. So that's pretty awesome. So here's what I want to do. I want to close it with, I know that your heart is to help people, but at the same time, you only have so much time in your day. So what we're going to do is maybe you have a question. You're out there. You have a question for Steve. We have literally just touched the tip of the iceberg on this. But if you have a question, maybe you would like to meet with Steve and just connect with him on your own personal finances, where you're at. Maybe you're in a hole. Maybe you're at a point like where Steve's at a point, like, how do I start dreaming? This is what I want to encourage you to do is email, and I'll get it. One of our staff will get it. podcast@crosspointschurch.com. podcast@crosspointschurch.com. Again, it'll be in the comments. You can look for that email below, and we'll connect you with Steve. We'll do our best to connect you with Steve. But Steve, I just want to thank you for being here, spending some time with us. I want to thank you for investing 15 years into other people's lives. That is pretty awesome. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And to me, it's about what David talks about all the time. It's about giving back, plugging back in and into the church. And to me, this is a small thing that I can do. And to me, it's more of a blessing. When we talk about blessings, it's more of a blessing to give. So,
all right. Well, thanks.
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
it. Well, hey, we're back. I want to thank Steve Raydo again so much for being here, being a part of that conversation. So what we're going to be doing for the next couple of minutes is I just have my own, and I am not an expert. I just want to say that right now. I'm not a financial expert, but I have my own top 5 ways that you can lead with your finances. And then I have 3 resources that I want to encourage you if you are at a place where you need some help financially. And by that, I mean just planning, making decisions, getting out of debt, maybe saving. Maybe you're ready for the next step. What do I do with my finances? Just some tools that you can look up. So here we go. All right. So these aren't necessarily in top 5 orders, but these are just 5 ways that I believe that we can lead with our finances. And I just want to encourage you, remind you that this whole podcast is about leadership. How do we equip ourselves to lead? And one of the ways that we equip ourselves is with our finances. So first one is, and Steve mentioned it, is to have a written plan. And of course, if you are a Dave Ramsey fan, if you're a follower of Dave Ramsey, that written plan is your budget. But I think even just having written down goals, financial goals, I want to have X amount of dollars in savings. I want to be out of debt. I want to be able to give X amount of dollars. I want to buy a car in the next 2 years. Having a written plan of goals, ideas of what your finances look like. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2 is leveraging your own financial fails. Leveraging your own financial fails. I think we tend to be embarrassed by our failures, and I understand why, but I have learned that I learn more from my failures than I do my successes. I'll give you an example financially. Several years ago, about 15 years ago, my wife and I had an opportunity to buy a piece of land. We were living south of Kansas City in Lewisburg. We had an opportunity to buy 20 acres, beautiful, beautiful land. Right on one of the borders was a creek that ran through it. Woods was part of about 1/3 of the land, and then 2/3 was just open field. We wanted to buy this land and put an offer in, and for whatever reason, the owner took it off the market. About a year later, I get a call from the land broker who we knew we had done some other deals with. And he said, hey, the owner's about to put the money or the land back on the market. I want to let you know so you can put an offer in as soon as it comes up. My wife and I talked about it, and this is the thing, the mistake we made, is we put in an offer of full price. We didn't even try to come down on it a little bit. We put in a full price offer, and of course, the guy accepted. Well, long story short is we never lived on that land. We ended up selling it. We not only did we lose the money that we paid in fees and taxes and the interest, but then we sold at a loss. That was a painful thousands and thousands of dollar failure on my part. But here's what I did. I leveraged that failure the next time I needed to make a major purchase. And so that was a few years later. Our family, we moved to Shawnee, and that's here in the Kansas City area. And we took a year to buy a home. We waited a year. We didn't just go out and find the first house that we could find that might be a fit. We waited a year. And on top of that, we found really good advice. We found someone, a great realtor here in the Shawnee area where we bought a house who knew the area really well. And we leveraged our failures for success in the future. I found this quote. It says, financial literacy is not about wealth, but about understanding money regardless of the amount. It's about how you treat it and how you maximize your opportunities. And that's Melody Hobson said that. It's about how you treat money and how you maximize opportunities. And so my question is, do you see your failure as an opportunity? Do you see your failure as an opportunity? All right, number 3 is to lead with generosity. One of my favorite Bible teachers is a guy named Andy Stanley, and he teaches that there's 4 enemies of our heart. There's guilt, there's anger, there's jealousy, and there's greed. And he says that all of us deal with probably 1 or 2 more than the others. Again, that's guilt, there's anger, jealousy, and greed. And he says that there's an antidote for every one of those 4 enemies of the heart. And when it comes to greed, I think that's one of the ones, I'll just be honest, that I deal with personally. And he says one of the antidotes to greed, or the antidote to greed, is generosity. So if we want to defeat greed in our heart, we have to lead with generosity. And this is what I know about money, is that whatever has my money has my heart. So am I being generous with my money? And we can be generous in all kinds of ways. We can be generous with our money. We can be generous with our time. We can be generous with our relationships. But when we're generous with our money, it does something with our heart. It releases greed. So are you leading with generosity? Number 4, how to lead with our finances is to get out of debt and save cash. One of the best decisions that my wife and I made 15 years ago is we did the Dave Ramsey thing and we got out of debt. Other than our house, we got completely out of debt. And not only that, but we began to save money, and eventually we were able to save up to 6 months of our income. So in other words, if we didn't make any money for 6 months, we would be able to live. We'd be able to pay all of our bills. Long story short is both of us left our jobs at the same time, roughly the same time, 10 years ago. And because of that fact that we were out of debt and that we had saved up 6 months of our income, we were able to take our time and find the next thing that God had for us, which led me here to CrossPoints, led my wife to starting a new business that's very successful, and it allowed us to do that without being worried. All right. Now, would I have made that choice? It was a great choice. It was the right choice. It was the right time. I don't know if I would have happened if I would have, been in debt and over my ears in debt, which I was close to that before we got out of debt, and if I had the 6 month savings. Last thing, number 5, is to teach your children about finances. Now, maybe you don't have kids. At some point you will have children, I'm guessing. Maybe you don't have kids, they've all grown up, but you have grandchildren, right? Steve talked about it, right? Like, so many of us grew up without really truly understanding finances. And so maybe you don't know all of it, but here's what you do know. You know the lessons that you've learned. You know the failures that you've experienced, whether it's debt or investing, credit cards, student loans. Lead with those failures. And you might feel like it's too late for yourself, but you can always lead your children, your grandchildren. So teach them about your finances. Okay, so those are the 5 things. I'm just going to go over those real quick. Number 1 is have a written plan. Number 2 is leveraging your financial fails. Number 3 is to lead with generosity. Number 4 is to get out of debt and to save cash. And number 5 is to teach your children about finances. Finally, I have 3 tools for personal finances, 3 tools to lead your own personal finances. The first one is, we've talked about it a lot today, and that's Financial Peace University. And you can find the information, again, I'll have that in the comments if you look down below, but you can find that at daveramsey.com/FPU. All right, all the information, I just looked at it today. It's $129 lifetime. You get it on your phone. You can get a coach. You get the written plans. Everything that you would need, all right there, daveramsey.com/FPU. I'm not making any money out of this. I just know that it works, all right? The next one was given to us by one of our members here at the church, Shannon Jensen. Thank you very much for passing this along. It's I was broke, now I'm not.com. I was broke, now I'm not.com. Literally type that in, I was broke, now I'm not.com. And there's loads of free tools there. All right, so if you don't have $129 and you want to figure out how to get out of debt and a budget, you can look that up. There's budgeting tools, there's debt reduction tools, there's annual plans like goals, how to set goals for your own personal finances. So that's the second thing. And the third one is, actually, I have something that I would love to be able to give some of you, and I was sharing this with Steve earlier. It's called the $1,000 Journal, and I found this on a site called Indiegogo. Indiegogo is like a Kickstarter, crowdsourcing, fundraising, and so this journal, I'm going to actually get them. I know I'll get them. Sometimes you don't get the stuff that you try to fund on those sites, but it's actually a journal, written journal, and their goal is to help students and migrant workers save money, where they see all the time anyone have a plan. This helps people save $1,000 in 7 weeks. And then after that, helps them really become debt-free, become financially set. That's their goal. This is a pen and paper journal. So here's what I want you to do. If you would like one of those journals, or you want one for your kids, you want one for your grandkids, I would love to give one away. And so I'm going to have a handful that I'll give away. And here's how you're going to get it. Number 1, subscribe to this channel, the CrossPoints Church channel. Hit that subscribe button. As Pastor David says, smash that subscribe button. And then the second thing is, I want you to leave a comment, and your comment with your financial win during COVID. All right. So we hear tons of things that are going wrong in the news, but I want to know what your financial win, it could be small, it could be big. What is your one financial win that you have during COVID? All right. So if you want a journal, smash the subscribe button, but then more importantly, comment in the comment section below and tell me what is your one financial win during COVID, and you will be entered to win one of the $1,000 journals. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this very first ever Leading Equipping podcast, and I will see you in 1 month.